All right, we are live. Welcome back. Tonight we're going to be talking about two read in Palms coverage. My name is Chris Haddad, Steve McGrath, Ryan Swingle alongside with us as well. And what we're going to do tonight, it's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to first walk through, me, Steve, and Ryan are going to walk through what is Palms coverage and the basics of palm coverage. And then after that, we're going to turn to the offensive side and actually how to beat Palms coverage. That way, if you're a defense coordinator or if you work with the defense, you understand where the holes are. And we have clips and cut-ups that Coach Swingle has brought up. So we're going to take a look at those. But first, before we actually get into these clips and everything, I'm going to pull up a playbook here. And the way we're going to do it, and Ryan, Steven jump in as well. What we're going to do is we're going to go over from a playbook perspective what it is, the reads for each position, and exactly why we run Palms coverage. Before we get going, Ryan, Steve, I've heard of it as Palms coverage, two read, trap, robber. Throw out any other names you guys know.
I mean, you guys would know better than I.
Yeah. Ryan, I don't know if you heard anything else from it as far as the different types.
I see Ryan's mouth moving, but I can't hear anything.
My bad. No, I think that about covers all of it. When I was at Elyria High School last year and was working with more of the defensive side of things, we would call it that true two-read or clamp coverage. I know a lot of Saban guys are big on the whole clamp deal, especially when you're running it to that run some sort of pressure scheme to the backside of it, and you're just basically going either man without that underneath flat player. But that basically covers it. Obviously, a bunch of different ways you can call it, but at the end of the day, Palms is Palms, whether you call it two-read, Palms, trap coverage, it's all the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a good point, and especially I teach my players this way. I teach them the wide variety of the names just because when they go on to play college football, they're not sitting in a room and a coach is being like, we're going to run two-read coverage, and this is how they do it. And in the back of their head, they're like, I don't know what two-read is, but they do. It's just Palms coverage. So right. I think it's always good when you're teaching that to teach all the names possible, whether it be two-read, Palms, like I said, trap, robber, two-trap. Like I said, there's a million different names for it, but essentially from the core and fundamental basics of it, which we're going to be talking about tonight, it's all the same thing. So the first thing we're going to talk about is just from a 2x2 half field set. And I drew this up on the playbook from a half field set. We're only going to be talking about the right half here. It's the same thing on the left side too. If you run a 4-2-5, it's going to be a split field coverage where you have these three working together, right? And on the backside, you'll have some sort of man, or you can even palms it into the boundary, wherever you decide. But anyways, we're going to be talking about these two receivers over here with these three combinations here. And again, Ryan, Steve, feel free to jump in just to add any commentary as I'm going along here. But the premise of Palms coverage is, and it's called trap coverage for a reason. You're trying to trap number two and trying to bait the quarterback into throwing a football that he doesn't necessarily want to throw. And for our read here as a corner, we're going to be staring directly at number two, okay? And typically the read is if this receiver goes anywhere 5 to 7 yards and out, he's going to jump him, okay? Or rob him or trap him, okay? Now, where this gets shady and what Ryan's going to talk on a little bit when we get to the offense is where is 5 yards, where is 7 yards? I know for me, I like to teach 7 yards. I know some coaches like to teach 5 yards. So it all depends where that break point is. But you're in a shuffle, a slow back pedal, whatever it is, and the minute he breaks outwards, okay, we're going to jump on him right away, okay? Even if he bubbles out, again, this is a way to stop these bubble teams to get some high pressure on them as well. You can teach your guys to go around it. You can teach them to go to the inside, but regardless, they're triggering now, okay? And it's just a way to try to get a TFL in the backfield from your corner position to try to hit on the bubble screen, okay? If he goes vertical, typically coaches have him stay vertical, okay? And the reason being, if we get any corner route or anything that falls on top of the corner, they can drop and sink into it, okay? So far we have, if he goes out, we're going to jump him. If he goes vertical, we're going to stay vertical, okay? If he goes into the inside, we're going to put where we are and get our eyes back to number one, okay, because he's our only threat there. So really there's only three things this receiver can do. He can go in, he can go out, or he can go vertical, and that's what this corner's reading here. And he's triggering as soon as he gets that out that's coming directly to him. Guys, do you want to add anything to the corner position before I move on to the safety and outside backer?
Just one thing I think that you briefly touched on, but just kind of having that true landmark of whether it be 5, 7, and whatever the case may be. I know me and you were talking about it beforehand, but giving good visual cues and giving good landmarks, whether that be what is that true linebacker depth, and if that's where you're going to have that break point be of when if 2 carries to that certain point, then he's considered vertical, and now the safety would be taking him. But and then when is that point of that break to where he does make that outcut, and now the corner is going to jump him? Just having those clear guidelines, having that clear communication of where that point is, where he does truly declare either as a vertical player or as a player into the flat.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's probably the hardest part of this coverage, is to have that player, and to teach that player that, hey, you need to be able to jump him, because when it gets to 7, 8 yards, it does get a little shady, right? As a corner, you're not sure. So it's good, as to your point, Ryan, just to echo it, to have those landmarks of, I need to trigger and jump him now. That way I don't get caught in that. Okay. Just moving on to the next one too. And this is, I'll go with the safety last. I think the eye discipline with the safety is really key. The outside back here, whether it be your Sam or whoever it may be, he's going to be stuck on number 2 as well. So this whole defense is predicated off of reading this number 2 here. If the 2 goes out, okay, and just knowing football and football combinations, if 2 goes out, you're either getting 1 back in or you're going to get 1 vertically. One of the 2 is going to happen, okay? So when he sees that 2 go out, he's going to look back to that 1 to the inside. If 2 goes vertical, and this is the technique I teach, and Ryan, I'm not sure how you guys teach it, but if he goes vertical, I'm trying to get hands on him to widen him, and then I'm keeping my eyes on 1 here, just in case we do get any smash principles. So hands on 2, the eyes on 1 as they're carrying him through. If he wants to go underneath, we're trying to deny the inside and make him run the hump. But if he clears and is out of there, I'm looking left the backside, or I'm looking 1 back underneath. Ryan, anything to add on, or Steve, anything to add on the Sam?
No, I think just having that good reroute is the biggest thing, especially when you look at it from an offensive perspective, when it comes down to like timing of routes and where we're trying to get to by the time the quarterback gets to a certain point in his drop. I think it's big. Looking at now from a defensive perspective is how can you disrupt that? How can you not give him a clean release? And some of the stuff that I'll talk about from an offensive perspective coming up, we're looking for that clean release whenever we can get it. So if the defense isn't getting hands-on to reroute, isn't really walling off the inside, if you do want to come underneath or you do want to break it off over the top, just getting some sort of hands-on, getting some sort of a reroute is the biggest thing from that overhang player.
Yeah, and just another point too to add, Ryan, what you said, if you do let him streak down the field without getting hands on him, he's putting pressure on that safety fast, and then you can break him in or out. It just makes his day an absolute nightmare. So just being able to get hands on him to disrupt this route is a big part of this coverage. Okay, so moving on to the safety perspective, his eyes again are on 2, and I have him misaligned slightly here. We want him a little bit to the inside. I usually have him 2 yards on the inside shoulder and about 8 to 10 yards depth. And again, what we're reading here is same thing. If he's going to go out, okay, our eyes have to flash back to 1, because one thing that does beat palms is this whole shot on as this wide receiver begins to widen his depth if you walk through the field. Okay, so if he's out, he's going to get over 2-1, especially if he gets vertical there. If we have number 1 pressing to the inside, he's number 2 is dragging now. He's gone and he eliminates himself. Again, our eyes are back to 1. We're checking for 2 coming through the middle. And then, of course, if he's going to carry vertical or any 4 vert situations, he's going to stick with them on the vert there. So, again, in-out vertical principles that help for palms coverage, especially if you're installing this day 1, just teaching you guys the in-out vertical principles and just know what can threaten you and what number 2 is doing, and be able to react to him as quick as possible. Ryan, Steve, anything to add on number 2? Nope. Feeling good about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Coach Olsen, good question here. So he said, what do you use for alignment for your corner? Do you have him a 45-degree outside leverage for 1, eyes on 2? So that's a good question. So in the past, and Coach Oss, I'm actually glad you're here. We actually ran this against you in the clip I'm going to show here. So I typically like him to the outside shoulder facing in at a 45. In the past and in the clip you're going to see here, I had him about 5 to 6 yards depth. Moving forward, I believe I'm going to have him 3 to 4 yards depth. I just think it cleans up the read and it gives the quarterback. If we're trying to bait him, I'll be deeper. But if I'm trying to play just regular base defense, he'll be closer. Okay. And, especially if you're like a team that's a heavy bubble team or a heavy flat team, that's when we'll have our guys line up to about 7 to 8 yards. And I'm telling that corner, load up on your back foot for the first 3 seconds and then get in your shuffle to get out. And if you get that out now, let's trigger down and go hammer that thing. So to answer your question, yeah, it would be head up to outside is where I want his leverage. Okay. Ryan, you want to add on to that as far as leverage wise?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I think just like the biggest question that I've seen come up is like, or not really question, but like, oh, like this just looks like this is basically just cover 2. But I think the biggest differentiation between the two coverages of that corner being the true flat player and like a hard cover 2 or even a cover 2 sink is he's like really in cover 2 is really trying to play that flat as his first priority. And even if you are playing some sort of like a 2 sink where the corner is going to try to reroute that outside receiver inside and then sync with him until 2 appears into the flat, is in this quarter's palms look is his first priority is to get depth out of his drop and then react late. Whereas in cover 2, it's more of that hard flat or that true cover 2 look to where he is having that first priority and first part of his thought process being into that true cover 2 look.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point. Yep. Yeah, and just to add on to Coach Olson's question here about the leverage and where he is to the outside. Again, and I've played this several ways too, where we'll have our corner actually punch number 1 and still have his eyes on 2, just to disrupt that fade route if they are trying to throw that whole shot. Or he can just bail out of it. I've done that too. We're showing essentially like a press man, and then we bail out of it, and then still have the eyes on 2. So there's a lot of different shakeups that you can do, but palms is still palms. You're just window dressing it just a little bit. Okay. And then the clip I just wanted to show here and is just, guys, I had to dig back to a few years where we had a clean clip on this. And this is just, Coach, I don't know what you called here, but it looks like just a simple fade out concept. And what we're going to see here is number 2 at the bottom of the screen, just going to work on a simple out route here. And we're playing trap coverage where number 23 is going to come in and make this hit. Simple, slant flat concept. And we're just hopping on him to hit him. Again, moving forward, I would like probably for him to be a little bit closer. I think that will stir up the read a little bit more for the quarterback. A big portion of this too, and this is where Ryan's going to talk about this in a little bit too. If your safety is late, the slant flat concept can hurt you because as your corner is clearing out, if your safety doesn't trigger down to 1, we're going to leave a big open window right here. And you can see the safety here got a little bit lazy triggering down. But as soon as that 2 leaves, the eyes of number has to go back to number 1, to trigger down to be able to hammer that slant. If not, there's going to be a huge window there for him to hit it. But again, it's a short shuffle out, being able to jump on it. And then you get a big hit there. And again, that's why they call it robber coverage or trap coverage, because you do get that big hit or you do get an interception if the quarterback doesn't rifle that ball out there.
Now, do you want that overhang player screaming so hard into the flat on this, or what are your coaching points? I know we kind of talked about it briefly as far as when 2 goes out, we're kind of looking more for 1 to either come back in and kind of condense that until 1 hits us in the face. But what are your coaching points for that overhang in this situation?
Yeah, that's a great question too. And I primarily pulled this clip up just for the corner play of this because these 2 are not where I want them to be right now. Number 2 should be triggering down to that slant once you see 2's coming out. And this overhang player, I don't want him going too far out because once 2 is going out, by him vacating like he did, just left the wide open slant window open. And this kid's a stud right now, UNH right now. If he catches that ball in open space, he's gone, right? So that's one kid we don't want to have the football, but he knows, and we talked about this when he came back to the sideline, that he can't be leaving that vacated zone. I want him right there. Stay where he is. Once 2's going out, I want his eyes back to 1 and hanging in that hook to curl area. Yep. Okay, I'm just going to switch back to the playbook here. Okay, so that's just the general basics of true read. And like I said, you could install it with any outside back or corner safety combination. I know a lot of coaches, and I'll just draw this up right now. If you are running a true 4-2-5, will have some sort of this look here. And let me drag everything here so we're into the boundary. We'll see this look. They'll play some sort of quarters coverage to this side, and then they have their will cheat the box just a little bit and be able to play the palms coverage to this side. So there's different variations you can do with this palms coverage. But at its core, essentially, if you're trying to kill any bubble teams or Coach Gower, did someone say palms? For those who want a little bit more in-depth look, we're talking just pure fundamentals and basics right now. For those who want a more advanced look at palms, and Coach Gower does a fantastic job. He comes on our clinic every year. We're going to link that Coach Gower's video at the bottom of this video. You guys can go check that out. So what we're going to do now is transition to the offensive part of this segment. And Coach Swingle, I'm going to have you share your screen so you can take over. This is how to, and like I said, we want to show you the basics of it from a defensive standpoint. So if you're a coach looking to install palms, you can install it, but also you need to know how it's beat. Okay. So that way you can protect against yourself and plug all the holes. If you're getting gashed while running this as one of your main coverage, you know exactly how to plug it up. So I'm going to pass it over now to Coach Swingle. He's going to run through a couple clips and just a couple different things that you can do to beat palms coverage.
No doubt. So first thing I kind of want to talk about, obviously, pretty good explanation of what true palms looking like. But I kind of wanted to touch on just the second variation that I'll look for when I'm scouting a defense, and something that we ran with some success last year that I think there are. Obviously, we talk about what are the weaknesses to it, is when they do want to bring. So we talked about when they want to put that will into the boundary and still run. So if we got a 2x2 look here, putting this tight end or our Y flexed out, if we were to move this over into the boundary like this, bring in some sort of either in a 4-man front, a single backside will pressure, or if you were to have an odd front, bring in this buck backer off the edge as well, or the jack, whatever you want to call them. And then in this case, it's more of a true man coverage principle, to where we're basically just playing 2 read on these 2 guys. So if number 2 wants to go out into the flat, we'll still have the same 2 read rules. Leave some more underneath stuff, and especially depending on what depth the safety is playing at. If he is playing at a true 8 to 10 yards depth, as a lot of palms teams will play, a better look for us on offense, in my opinion, as far as space to operate with when we're losing this backside flat player and the late force player. So I think some different things you can do off of that when we're looking at from a game plan perspective are the main true split field versions that you can look at, as well as some different answers to 3x1 as well, whether you're reading 2 to 3 and manning up number 1 with some mag looks or some mod looks, depending on what that corner's playing. If you want to poach that backside safety to match 3 coming across, then leaving that backside corner. So if we were to go into a true 3x1 look with this Y or the tight end coming back across the formation to make a true trips look here, essentially what I'm saying here is if this safety is going to look to rob 3 coming across, as opposed to leaving this inside linebacker on an island having to match 3 vertical, then we'll just man up, play some press coverage with this backside corner. So those are some of the variations that I look for as far as when we're looking at that true split field and looking to put together a scouting report when we're looking to attack it. So first we'll look at some of the stuff that I like out of 2x2 to a couple different variations. The first thing is when we do get this backside pressure, if you're looking to go some sort of a quick game, looking to go maybe like a stick concept or something like that to the front side here, looking to take advantage of that double slant on the backside of some sort of a quick game when you get some blitz pressure and they want to play a true clamp coverage or a 2 read on the backside. The reason for that is we get both of the guys on in-breaking routes. They're losing this hook to flat player or the curl to flat player on the backside being this will. So once both of them break in on these slant routes, you should hit number 2 for a wide open window right in here. And then if for some reason they did want to roll down and jump the corner with looking to have a slight bail technique to 2 in this man look, either you should be reading backside number 2 to backside number 1 versus this man variation of quarters. As far as just a half field base thing that you can run at the entry level of high school that I feel like a lot of teams run in this true quarters concept, or the palms quarters concept, is a post wheel combination. So the post wheel will do a few things for you. We're going to get the post here by the outside receiver. Obviously, if we're going into the boundary, want to kind of widen the splits out, but we'll look at this from a true middle of the field look, trying to create as much space as possible in the spread RPO based world that a lot of people are living in nowadays. So here we'll run the outside number one, running a post route. He's looking to really keep this skinny. When we talk about having that poach coverage, potentially having a backside safety, looking to help out. If we could get some man looks on the backside, and they're really trying to take away maybe someone to the front side of our passing strength here. Different looks that we want to keep this front side post skinny to really put this safety in conflict. Number two here, we'll be running a wheel route, so getting to the flat. Then we're breaking up the sideline on a wheel route. More of a high level deal here that we can do off of this wheel concept is having it turn into a read wheel. So what a read wheel is for me, once he gets as this flexed out receiver, once he gets to about 10 to 12 yards, he needs to make a decision of whether the corner or a safety over him, if he is capped or uncapped. So if we have some soft coverage by the corner or a safety really playing hard over the top to where I'm not winning vertical over the top, he can just sit down right here at about 10 to 12 yards and work back, show a big chest to the quarterback. But if you don't trust your guys aren't at that level, maybe a younger group of players where you don't want them to read coverages, just this true post wheel can put this in conflict. And the reason why is we get this breaking out into the flat. So this corner will be forced to jump number two. But now once we break it up onto the wheel, he's really putting one-on-one coverage. Now, once number two breaks out to the flat, this corner, his immediate thought should be to get over the top to stop one going vertical. Once he really starts to get out at that 45-degree angle to try to cut off one over the top, especially if you can run this to the field and he has a lot more ground to cover, he's going to really try to open his hips up and run. We can press vertical here about 12 to 15 yards. Once we get to that seventh step, really taking that timing step to the inside, snapping off of our outside step, here being our left foot on that seventh step, and snapping it skinny on the post, trying to win inside of that safety. If for some reason this guy was really sitting hard on number two, we still want to keep that skinny. Now we're just trying to get more over the top of him. So as we kind of inside release this route, and we are forcing the inside release on this post wheel concept by the post player, once we get that good inside release, we should have our eyes immediately affixed to that safety and keeping it skinny regardless, but just knowing we might be breaking it more off on a true skinny post if he does want to sit hard on that hash and not really get any depth.
Yeah. And Ryan, I'm looking at this from a defensive perspective, right? We're seeing that pressure really be on that cornerback because he's got to decide, because the reads declared himself early, right? It's like, hey, number two is going out. Okay, one's going to pick him up. But that corner doesn't know, do I sit with one or the new number one that's coming around the edge? Like, what do I do, right? And that's what the conflict we're looking here.
Right. Yeah, and I think for the quarterback, the read here is if you can ID this palms coverage. Number one, looking at the safety. If he does want to really try to fight over the top to take away like the wheel or something like that, we can look to work the post. But if he does want to sit on that post and sit more on the hash, now we should know if we can get that pre-snap ID of palms coverage within our scouting report, within our pre-snap checklist. Know that we have that one-on-one on the corner, really getting that advantage of him biting down onto the flat route, especially if we can turn our shoulders. So a lot of people will teach, I know as well, for that corner not to trigger until the quarterback shoulders turn. So if we can even get, especially in like a game plan sense, if we do want to get like a play action or a pump fake to really get that corner to bite hard onto the flat, I think that's a big piece to look at as well as far as an overall concept perspective.
Yeah, for sure. And Coach Dana Olson in the chat says, we use our receivers if we're even, we're leaving, and if we have cushion, we're pushing. So I like that a lot. As a nice use, little
soft and off, we're chopping and dropping, and then even, we're leaving. That's our terminology for it, for the read wheel component.
Yeah.
The second piece of this is a true So we can run this out of 3x1 or 2x2, but really just having this boundary read to whatever side of the field. So this would be more of a boundary concept. Same read wheel principle for number 2. So we'll run the wheel. If this corner really wants to fly out and carry some depth, and we know that we're not going to beat him deep and he's soft and off, we're going to chop and drop and sit down onto this read concept where we are going to snap it off onto a stop route. If he does want to jump down here now and really play the outcut hard, we'll continue on this read wheel look up the hash on the wheel. Now number 1 will be a little bit different. So he's going to inside release underneath this overhang player. So hopefully the thought is either this overhang is going to declare and push wide like we saw in your clip.
Yeah. Yep.
Or he's going to sit here and wait, and now we will just continue up the seam. So this is kind of like that hunt route that a lot of people talk about, that post curl read. This is just more of a curl read here. So we're going to So we're going to break hard inside, go underneath here with the number 2 exchanging on this release here. Then we're going to come up the seam as if we're running a vertical. So now if it's the same thing, it's this read progression. If we are uncapped and this safety wants to bail off the hash and really try to get over the top, or they want to rotate down and play some sort of like a cover 3 look or a buzz look to where he's going to insert as the hook player, or he might rotate down as the flat player. If he is uncapped and we have a open release up the seam on this vertical route, we will continue to take it. If not, we will sit down. So ideally, this is a look we're going to get versus palms, or we could have a double sit concept and really open up this window. And I do have some film cut-ups of this that we'll look at here in a second. I think this is a great quarters beater. I think it's something that can work against a lot of coverages. And I think when you see that cover 3 look and you force, so in like some sort of a cover 3 look where this flat player is really going to be trying to scream out hard, whether it be match coverage, whether it be a true zone drop coverage, he is going to be matching 2 into the flat and pushing to that. So if we do get this cover 3 look, ideally where they're going to rotate to the backside of this, when the safety rotates over the top, this guy expands out. This seam shot should be wide open, working up the seam here if they were to uncap us here. So I think this is a really good concept for a variety of coverages, not just a quarters beater, and having options within the route to have answers to a multitude of coverages.
That's great.
2 other things I want to talk about real quick before we got into some film. One was just a double post concept. So I like to do this a lot of times off of play action. It's something that we'll do a lot at Oberlin College, talking about it actually in our pass game review today. So double post concept off of a boot deal. So I'll flip the back to the other side. So we're going to be booting off of this, just faking like a true inside zone play or a wide zone, whatever your base run scheme is. We're going to be faking zone going here. True boot rules. The tight end is going to be pinning to spinning. So he's going to be pinning down this backside defensive end, this backside C-gap player. We're going to try to protect this quarterback as long as possible so that we're not running it like a true naked. We want to make this a true boot concept. We can have the option to put a tag on it to pull this guard as an escort sickle puller to have that second line of defense against any sort of overhang trigger so that we don't have immediate pressure into the quarterback's face. But the base look that we'll look at tonight is pinning to spinning. So if we can get this linebacker sucked inside, ideally we want to pin him down, and then late we'll release out as the late flat player. So for the double post look to the front side of it, we'll just be running a comeback. We'll be released on the comeback, sitting down to occupy this backside safety, and the backside corner hopefully is the ideal look. And then on this backside here, we'll be running inside release post, really trying to grab the inside hand of this safety. And on the backside here, we'll be running the skinny post, not trying to get any farther inside than that hash, so that if this does get taken away here, we can really hit it over the top late, put our foot in the ground, and get it over the top for a big game, especially against this Palms look where they're going to be looking to play more of a true man coverage and chase on this post deal. I think that play action sense of it allows, so when we're talking about how we look at it from a defensive perspective. A lot of times teams will knife this defensive end inside to try to spill it to this overhang player, with him not having that immediate pass threat responsibility. So if we can play action fake, sell a good fake, and get this guy to bite down and not get that reroute, if we can get him on a clean release over the top to that safety, I think it does a lot of good stuff for us as far as inside releasing, getting behind this overhang player, not necessarily to the drastic nature that I have drawn up here, but just a slight inside release, trying to get nose to nose with this corner, then stemming upfield, and then really breaking hard to grab his inside hand on the post. You can do this out of a true drop back. I just really do like the action that the boot deal puts off of it. And I think a lot of times safeties too, once they see that boot away, they don't remember to really cover anything backside, because not a lot of teams will look to hit this backside post. They're more looking to try to cut this crosser on a backside over route, as a lot of teams will run off a boot for like a true waggle look. But here, if we can get that skinny post, grab the inside hand of the safety, no matter if they do want to try to poach this on the backside, especially this 2x2 look with that tight end staying in, a lot of times this backside safety will be poaching. And once again, I do have some good film cut-ups of this as well.
Yeah, and Ryan, can you talk a little bit about, you mentioned a few times, but that inside stem to get vertical, to you use the term grab the inside hand of that safety. Can you just talk a little bit more, maybe in simplistic terms, of what you mean by grabbing the inside hand and why we want to do that?
So in this picture here, the inside hand, as far as when we're looking from the offensive perspective, would be the right hand of the safety. So once I do press inside, ideally this guy is going to be getting some depth, maybe a little bit of width off of his drop, off of his initial read. Wherever he ends up off of his drop, I want to try to get nose to nose to him. So that way he doesn't have leverage on me. We take away and attack his initial leverage. Once we do take away his initial leverage and give us more of a two-way go, we can snap off of his inside hand. So if he was to get a little bit of depth off this hash, I'm looking to match that. So whether I have to inside release all the way to the hash, once this guy kind of declares down into the run fit a little bit, hopefully is the thought process behind boot is that we can get more of a clean release onto this safety. And a lot of times in this palms look, he will be automatically over the top of number 2. Anyway, just because this guy is the inside leverage player and he's out of the run fit and the run fit responsibility. So he can be truly over number 2 with the ability to get over the top of number 1. So a lot of times he's already starting in that pre-snap position. So in this case, we wouldn't have to get as far of an inside release. It's getting nose to nose with him, attacking him, forcing him to hopefully open up his hips. Or if he doesn't want to try to drive on us early, trying to grab that inside hand. So in this case would be the inside hand would be our right, his left hand from a defensive perspective, and just trying to take him with us. And if he doesn't, we should be the person open. If he does want to drive on us, now it should leave this window over the top to throw it into the green grass over the top to that second post.
Perfect. It's a good explanation. Good.
All right. Last thing I want to talk about before we got into the film with some of this stuff. One way, and this is kind of going into an overall thought process, not just the concept itself, is using stack alignments and some short motion from an outside receiver to take advantage of this. So when they are trying to read 2-1, 1-2, having some sort of that read component, I think, Chris, you can touch on it too. Having the stack alignment, not only just from a stagnant pre-snap to where if we were to just line up in this sort of like a stack look, it's not ideal for a defensive teaching. I feel like, especially at the high school level, it's hard to teach these guys to do some sort of a 2 read or a palms look when they are in the stacked alignment, teaching first in, first out, or what happens if 1 and 2 both go in, or things like that. Especially last year, we had some trouble when teams would get into the stack look, even from a stagnant look, let alone if we were to start out here, do some pre-snap motion. A lot of times you'll see the Patriots do this into some condensed formations. So motioning a guy like Edelman to be into this stack alignment, I think, is a big winner here in this palms look when they're trying to read number 1, number 2, when it's a little bit harder to declare who number 1 and who number 2 are. So we'll use some short motion from an outside receiver, ideally in this concept, more of a speedier, that Julian Edelman type guy, your true hybrid guy that you're looking to get the ball to out on your bubble screens, the guy that's the best route runner on your team. That if you do have some of those slot option routes, some choice routes, as some teams will call it. I think this is that guy that you want to run this side to. So we'll short motion him in, and he'll have that choice route here from what was initially the number one receiver. So he'll continue on that inside release. Now he's reading the pre and post snap leverage of this overhang player. So if this overhang player does have inside leverage on him, so if he wants to really settle into this buzz technique, he is going to break onto a speed out. So if he's inside, he's going outside. Now, if he wants to drop similar to that play that we saw of your guy dropping out into the flat to be that true flat player and expand for width, now we're just going to have that option for the choice route to break it.
To get underneath him. Okay.
Break
like
it
that.
back underneath.
Yep.
So he has the two-way go, the option here. The number one, what ends up being the number one receiver, but initially in my thought process is going to be that Y type. So that bigger receiver, maybe a X or a Z in your offense, or a Y, as in this case for a tight end alignment. He's going to be running a bench route. So he's going to inside release, lose some width, try to create some confusion for the defense. So with this guy inside releasing as well, it gives that confusion of sort of like a cross or a rub look. He's going to inside release him, ideally looking to stack the safety or stem to where he's attacking the leverage of this safety. He's going to press up vertical for about 12 to 15 yards. Once he gets to 12 to 15, he is going to really try to sell this inside stick and now stem back out to the outside here. So we get sort of that like bench concept that a lot of teams will run, to where you either have the speed out or the corner. But here, when we have that option, we can sort of option off of leverage of number two. So this will be the primary read for the quarterback. He's going to be looking to read this side first and then come back to the backside late. And this is where it gets a little freaky. So we're going to have a smash read concept on the backside as well. So this is more of that next level algebra 2 stuff, where you are putting in some option routes and some read routes. So we're going to have the wide depart hitch, as we call it, to where he's just running that simple hitch route. And now number 2, and this is ideally where if we can get game plan it to where they are going to run, where this guy's triggering, and they ran that 2 read look that I talked about, where it's more of that true man concept. And there's a good clip that I have coming up of where they were in a cover 0 look with some potential 2 read rules into it, where this play, the routes were ran very well. Quarterback read wasn't necessarily the best, but you can see how it works out here. So number 2, against 2 high coverage, so against in this palms look here, he'll be attacking the leverage of the safety here. Versus 2 high, he has the option based on where that safety's leverage is. So if he's inside, he's going to be breaking out onto the corner like a true smash concept. If he is playing outside, so if he starts to get some width off of it, or obviously we're talking about palms here, but if they're on some sort of like a true split field coverage, where maybe they're running cover 2 and he's looking to haul ass out of there and get some depth and get some width, if he does get out of there and we do have winning leverage to the inside, we'll just change our route here and break it onto the post.
Yep.
Now, if they're in a 1 high look, he's always and forever onto this corner route, as we want to kind of put this corner in a bind here versus 1 high safety. So we are looking to leverage, to option the leverage of the near safety, whether that be in 1 high, we're always going to be optioning to the outside. In 2 high, this is where that true read component comes off of the corner read action here. So the quarterback's read initially is going to be onto the safety. So he wants to take this initially. Once again, looking at big picture, looking at matchups. If this is your guy and you got this linebacker pushed out, you should be looking to get to that option guy. Also knowing the situation, is it 3rd and 12? Maybe I should look to really press this corner. If this safety has outside leverage and takes the corner away, this is the scenario that we'd want to work more back to this corner read look. So if this safety does want to fly out, this middle of the field is wide ass open.
Yeah.
So if he does want to fly out onto this corner out to the backside, once the quarterback kind of gets almost to the top of his drop, he should snap his eyes back around and get his eyes back to this backside number 2 route, especially in this 2 high look. If he can see that no safety rotation, we get a true both sides are running split field palms coverage. If this safety wants to work and we don't win on this corner route, or we're not looking to get to the option route, now we can work to the backside of this corner read. If he wants to play outside, the middle of the field's wide open. If he wants to hang on this hash, obviously looking to make sure that that corner does settle on the wide depart hitch. And as long as he does, we should have the access to the corner route as well.
That's good. It's good stuff. Yeah, I know you got filmed, but while you're pulling that up, I just want to make a few comments. I love that short motion, right? Because I think that really does put that read from that corner. It muddles it up a little bit, right? Because now you don't know if he's going to go past number 2. So does my read change to the new number 2 becomes new number 1, and it just screws everything up for the corner. So I really like that combination of that short motion.
No doubt, it's some good stuff. I think just having those options and having answers, like, and there's a couple different concepts that will run to the front side of that as well. Whether that be putting like a mesh concept into it, to where we'll run a couple drive routes or a mesh route, doing some stuff where we can have answers to whatever coverage you might see. I think keeping it like that same as teaching, I think, and marrying those concepts together to make it an easy read for the quarterback is something that we're looking to do here, and something that we've had success with in the past.
Yeah, and just before you get to these cut-ups here, I guess the bigger point is when you're trying to beat Palm's coverage, you're trying to manipulate it, right? And I think that's why, and I know for a fact that's why we started this whole presentation with here's what Palms is. That way you can learn the basics and the fundamentals of it, because you have to manipulate it by manipulating the corner or the safety, or like you mentioned there, the inside linebacker too, by having that stack look. So everything you do, especially when you're beating Palms, is how can we put them in a position where they're going to be wrong?
Right. So here on this first cut up, we're looking at that read wheel, the read vertical. So here, number 1's going to inside release, kind of wrap this overhang defender here. So he's looking to get inside, to get over the top of him. And now if he's capped by the safety, he'll sit down the hole. And same thing for number 2. He's on this read wheel look. If he's going into the boundary, if this corner wants to slough off, or he sees the safety really flying hard over the top, he's going to sit down and convert it onto a stop route. So ideally, we're going to have this guy fly out with the wheel route. The quarterback's going to be initially looking, having this triangle read that a lot of people will talk about, is we're going to be reading this coverage triangle right here. So reading through the alley defender to the safety, then peek into the corner late. So look at this play here. They are both going to chop and drop versus soft coverage. So we do get some late expansion here. I would like to see the number 1 receiver kind of push more inside and really sit into this window. Doesn't do a great job of it here, but kind of gets back to it late, and the quarterback does a good job of recognizing the coverage, seeing that flat defender fly out. Now you can even see these safeties' eyes. Once he sees going out, he kind of snaps out. Now he's screwed a little bit too late, working back down to the stop route from what was initially number 1, who turns into number 2.
Mm-hmm.
So here's this cover 0 looks. They're running cover 0, and they'll keep this middle player as more of that wrap defender, but they do have the option to either to do some 2 read stuff to the backside. So this corner is looking in, and they do have there is some game planning that you can look at, to where teams might run these man concepts where they give them the freedom to do some sort of trap coverage if they are into the boundary, or they feel like the split is shallow enough to get there. So here we're going to be looking at this wide depart hitch from number 1. Backside number 2, we're going to be getting this corner read look here. So he's going to be optioning the leverage off the safety. Here the safety kind of gets and opens his hips towards trying to cover the vertical, and he'll snap back underneath and win on the inside. So the quarterback just sees the off coverage, takes the hitch route. But when we're looking for, it's 3rd and 9, we don't need the hitch. We need the corner read, or we need to be looking to some sort of an underneath route, maybe clearing across. But if I'm looking at what the quarterback should be doing here, he should know the situation a little better. It's 3rd and 9. We don't need 6 yards on a hitch. We need 9 yards, cover 0, get the matchup on the safety, see him turn his hips out here a little bit. Sell the vertical, attack his leverage. He's opening up here. especially against a dude in the slot who's one of your better players, one of your more athletic players. Would like him to sort of press the corner a little bit more, but knowing that it is coverage zero, we have to kind of warm our routes up a little bit, make it a little more sense of urgency, knowing that the quarterback might be speeding up his drop and get to our landmarks a little bit quicker than if it was a palms look or a true drop 7 type of look.
Yeah, that's tough for a safety, a flat-footed read without any catch press or any contact, trying to cover a slot receiver running as fast as he can out of it. Stuff.
Yeah, and that was the big thing that we saw as like some issues as far as when we'd do like I call it like quarters lock, to where you're bringing that backside pressure. So we were an odd front last year, and we would bring the boundary overhang as well as the boundary inside linebacker. So our Will and our Rover is what we would call it. So the 2 boundary linebackers would both come on a blitz out of that 3-man front, making it a 5-man pressure. And we would give that backside safety in the backside corner the option, if they felt comfortable with running 2 read, the safety would cheat up to about 6 or 7 yards, and they'd play that true 2 read concept within a true man principle to the backside while we're running match quarters to the play side, really putting the emphasis on knowing that we can't get beat across our face as that high hole player from our Mike, knowing that he doesn't really have any help on the backside as far as zone players.
Yep.
So we take the hitch. Don't love it, but it is what it is.
Yep.
Here's some motion, and I do like motion as well, especially when we're looking at teams that might run some sort of a that pressure. So in this case, what we would have done last year is we would have brought this guy, maybe this guy. I mean, they line up a little bit differently than we might have. We would bring 2 guys off the back end and lock up this number 1 receiver. We'd play some quarters to the front side, just some different options. And if they're going to do that, motioning from 3-by-1 to a 2-by-2 alignment really kind of dicks with the defense. Just saying that what is their check to that? And I know for us, it's hard to communicate, especially when you're doing this split field coverage deal, when they have a check to trips. And then getting back to whatever their base call was, especially when you're running man principles, maybe bringing some pressure to the backside. So if I can ID that in a game plan scenario, getting them into a situation where we do know that they might run this quarters lock and bring some pressure to the boundary, motioning from 3-by-1 to the field to 2-by-2, coming across into the boundary, I think is something good to look at here. So they do carry that guy to give a man look, but it is more of like a variation of quarters here. You can see true quarters look where they're going to carry with number 2 into the flat. And this is that bench corner read.
Mm-hmm.
This will be the bench side, so we'll run the speed out here with the corner. And on the back side, just a little bit different version of it here. So we'll run the drive route from the outside receiver, and then he'll be running the corner read. Doesn't do a very good job of running the quarter of the corner read here. He kind of gets pushed for width. So that's the thing that you talked about in your presentation, is as this overhang player, I don't want to give this guy a clean release up to the safety. So if he gets that clean release, that's when he forces that safety to open up his hips, forces him to break down that cushion, and now he has a 2-way go off them. If we can get this reroute and expand him to the outside like that, one, it's messing up the timing of the quarterback. So if the quarterback was to come off of his initial read, like he kind of does here, and doesn't hit the drive, so if they want to match that drive coming across, like if they don't bring this bit of this like sim pressure look here or whatever,
Yep.
If they were to truly drop 8 and match this drive route coming across, or if this linebacker was to jump this and he were to have to come back to this corner read side, he's kind of screwed, just because this guy is now running, throwing it from, and this is Division III football. This isn't a Division I dude who has the arm talent of some of these high-level guys. To throw from the opposite hash, throwing a corner route to the field is one of the hardest throws, if not the hardest throw in all of football. So pushing him to truly get him outside of the numbers is not what we want offensively, and that's not a very good job by our slot receiver there. Doesn't do a very good job of beating the press coverage. So a good defensive teach tape here as well.
Yep.
But while we make adjustments, while we create different tags for it, get that drive route coming across, clear them on the high-low, some good stuff there. And here's that the boot off the double post look here. So we did take this from some Oklahoma stuff. So we're going to fake the run action going this way. This Y or an H back, whatever you want to call it in your offense, is going to be that pin to spin player. So he's going to try to, his immediate thought is, I need to block the C gap player, whoever that C gap player may be, whether it's the stand up linebacker, a defensive end, whoever that contain player is within the defense. He is going to pin him down initially. And then if he is not an immediate threat, or we can pin him inside, he's not trying to take away the boot action, we can spin to the flat late. We'll run a comeback here from number 1 and try to hold down this corner. And now off of the backside action, we'll run the skinny post for number 1. We'll run the grab post for number 2, trying to attack this inside leverage to either force this safety to come across on the first post. And now this whole area of green grass should be open for the skinny post, which we'll see Baker here take advantage of. So that guy wants to commit as this outside threat. We'll say screw, spin into the flat. We need to protect the quarterback and give him time to step on a throw. So some people, there's room for debate of what coverage this is. I'm thinking this is more of a true quarters look, saying that this is the bet. They're playing more of that robber coverage, as I like to call it, where this safety is the extra fitter into the box.
Yep.
With this overhang playing outside leverage. So with this safety on the backside hanging on that hash and not spinning to middle of the field coverage, I'm thinking of this from a scouting report and looking at what they're doing schematically is more of a true quarters look. Maybe not necessarily the palms variation that we were looking at, but still a good quarters or a good trap beater. If this corner was to poach number 2, now they're just putting this overhang as more of an outside leverage player, trying to funnel him into the safety. So just some different modifications, some different variations you can do, but still a good look at a quarters and trap beater here.
Yep.
So we inside release. We get this good inside release. He's trying to attack the leverage and grab the inside hand. So I can see this guy already before he even makes his break. He's starting to want to rob and cut this crosser coming across. So on a lot of boot stuff, they'll bring this guy on a comeback into the flat, but not a lot of people will do a whole lot, or they don't teach and put an emphasis on this backside guy being a true person in the route progression. And our head coach and our offensive coordinator talks all the time about there's no just go F yourself routes, pretty much, like where you're not in the progression. So we need to know as receivers at all times that we are an option within the route concept and we are available to be thrown to. So it's important for us to keep this post skinny. We try to climb over the top of the safety. He wants to dive down onto this first post. And now our quarterback needs to reset his feet, get his foot in the ground, and be able to sling this thing down the field. Obviously, some quarterbacks might not be able to make a 50-yard throw at the high school level. So you might want to make some modifications there. Obviously, maybe do some different things to fit your guys. Not saying this is exactly what you have to do, but if you do have a quarterback who can put the ball 40 to 50 yards downfield, not saying it has to be pretty or they have to be able to throw the ball 70 or 80. They don't need to be Pat Mahomes or anything out there. But I think understanding what your guys have, and if you do have a guy that's more of that dual threat, you're running some RPO stuff, you're running some quick game stuff, but not really looking to stretch the field vertically, don't do this. But if you do have the personnel and a guy that might have the potential to play at the Division III, Division II FCS level that can sling the ball a little bit, this is something you can put into your boot game to attack some quarters coverage.
Yep. It's good stuff.
That is all I got.
Okay, perfect.
I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Season can't come soon enough, Swings. No, that's great. So that's let me just adjust this here so you guys aren't zoomed in on my mug. No, it's great. So that's the basics and fundamentals of palms coverage, to read, trap, whatever you may call it. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Coach Swingle. And what we're going to get to next is the podcast. Steve, I botched it earlier. We usually do it at the very beginning. We're doing it at the very end now. Talk about the podcast, what we got going on beyond the helmet.
Well, we knew that Swings was on fire before we started this, and this Palms breakdown just reaffirmed everything I thought that it meant when Swings was on fire. That being said, So this week we released Graylin Arnold. One of the things I took out of that conversation, which is so prevalent with what we just did now, is he talked about how Coach Rule and Coach Snow, his defensive coordinator at Baylor, what they did to lay the foundation to take a team that went from 1-11 to be on the verge of going 10-0 and have an 11-win season in 2 years. But by year 3, they're literally ranked number 7 in the country. And he talked about how Coach Snow, the defensive coordinator, taught them defense by teaching the defensive players what the offense was trying to do. Literally what we just did here is what Coach Snow and Coach Rule did at Baylor to get the defense right. They didn't know what the offense was trying to do. So by laying this understanding from a schematic level, so that a defense understands, and vice versa, right? If the offense understands really what the defense is trying to do, that is how you move to playing chess, not checkers on the football field. So I just think that, with Graylin's podcast being released this week and having him talk extensively about that, and oh, by the way, Coach Rule will be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, and who's his defensive coordinator? Coach Snow.
Yeah.
So we'll see, how well that works at the NFL level. But I just thought that was really fitting. Laurel Murchison, defensive tackle, drafted to the Tennessee Titans in the 5th round. That was out today. And next week, there's some big things coming. So the pipeline is full with some good podcasts. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely excited.
Tighten up, baby.
All right, perfect. Coach Swingle and Steve, you got anything? Any last departing words before we sign off?
Excited to get back to some sense of normalcy here, hopefully soon. Obviously, with our situation, we don't get to have our guys back for the summer, but I'm looking forward to the potential of solidifying some dates coming up hopefully soon. I know Ohio just kind of made some big announcements as far as reopening of stuff throughout May. So I'm hopeful that we will have football this year, but obviously everyone stay safe and be well.
For sure. It's at the time of this recording, it's May 7th. We are 3 months away. Isn't that crazy? I feel like we just ended the season.
I know. It is crazy how I feel like ever since the convention, it's just flown by up to this point. So I'm excited. I'm ready to get rolling. I'm ready for the season to be here.
Yeah. And if I can just add one quick thing too, right? With all that's going on, this video, if anyone has any questions about anything, send us an email, find us on social media. If you're watching this on YouTube, right, leave a comment. Because of the fact that no one is with their teams and we're all just trying to get through this together, vIQtory very much is a football community. Like if we can do anything to help the conversation, do anything to share knowledge and tips for how to best deal with this, that I think above anything else is what we're here to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll just echo that message at vIQtory Sports. Feel free to reach out to us. We respond to every comment on YouTube, good or bad, and we love the discussion. So, make sure you follow us on all platforms at vIQtory Sports. We'll be back on Tuesday with another live clinic and Thursday night as well, whether it be scheme, skills, and drills. We like to mix it up. We'll let you know every Monday. Until then, I'm Chris Haddad, Steve McGrath, Ryan Swingle.